But guess what? Things are about to go from bad to worse here as the rock and steel type Bastiodon pounces onto the field, and it's gonna crush this Alolan Ninetales.
You can hear the crowd going wild behind us at the sight of this Bastiodon.
Hey everyone, this past weekend I attended my first ever official Pokemon Go tournament hosted by the Pokémon Company, which is a part of their championship series, and it was in San Diego. The top two finishers at regionals earns themselves an invitation to World Championships later this year in Yokohama, Japan. I honestly wasn't expecting too much out of this event. I was just going to go and have some fun and compete for the first time, but I was able to earn my World Championship invite. So if you missed out on the action, in this video I'm going to showcase all of my battles and some of the additional footage of me from this past weekend. This will just have the commentary from the casters, but in my next video I'm going to voice over my battles and talk about how I built my team and the strategy behind it and kind of what I was thinking when I was playing some of these matchups, because I think that could be really helpful for anyone else looking to attend these tournaments in the near future. I know this is going to be a long one, so feel free to watch it if you like, but I hope you enjoy, and thank you to everyone who's cheering me on this past weekend.
Started, so let's go ahead and jump into our next matchup. We're featuring a very familiar face to some of us from behind the desk. That is the Peng on the left-hand side of your screen, running a team of Registeel, Trevenant, Bastiodon, his signature classic right there, Noctowl, Purified Sableye, and Medicham. Against blepnir on the right-hand side of the screen, who is running a team of Lantern, Medicham, Swampert, another Shadow Gliscor, a Purified Sableye, and a Mawile, which is not a Pokemon I would expect to see.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of the very few Mawiles that we've ever seen in the Play Pokemon Go regional.
Get started in this matchup. It's going to be Noctowl versus Lantern out on the field. Another dapper Noctowl with the lovely hat. But yeah, unfortunately, going to switch in immediately because that was a really tough matchup to get this game started.
And we see that blepnir is staying in with the Lantern, which means that he doesn't necessarily have a very hard counter to Sableye. And that makes sense given that there is no hard counter to Sableye on that team of 6. We're going to see that he's actually staying in. So now the Noctowl has been very much freed up from this really awful matchup versus the Lantern, and now the Lantern's taken some chip damage, and we're seeing a charge move priority event between the Sableye, a second foul play coming off with this Surf.
And the first shield of the game from blepnir on that Lantern to keep it safe so that it can finish up the charge move priority event and connect the Surf with the Sableye. So great energy spent there from Lantern, as that does a nice amount of damage. And we'll switch into the Mawile afterwards. Now, it does look like this Mawile is using Fire Fang as its fast move, so neutral damage against the Sableye, but I can't wait to see what charge moves it has access to, as there is some potential for super effective damage and possibly that power-up punch ramp-up you were referring to as well.
We see that blepnir is reaching actually for the stab play rough. This is going to do a lot of neutral damage. Mawile is going to be resisting this flying type damage from Noctowl, but I don't think it has enough in the tank to be able to survive a Sky Attack.
I don't think so, but blepnir could have used that shield to help that Mawile hang on, but instead just lets it go. Sky Attack will pick up the KO and gives him the opportunity to rotate in that Lantern or that Gliscor, which is still at full health, and this could be a great opportunity to farm and get some extra energy.
We're going to see the Lantern come in. A Shadow Ball is already loaded on Caleb's side. Going through would likely knock out this Lantern. It does provide blepnir with the option to get an energy advantage on the Gliscor like you were talking about. It gets the full wing attack down, and it's got a lot of energy, and no Pokemon on Caleb's side wants to eat a Night Slash.
No, this is a really tough decision for him. You can send in the Trevenant and just have to take some really big damage right up front and then save the Sableye for a possible swap in to catch, but swapping in too early. Gliscor able to farm down the Sableye, and now this poor Trevenant does have some energy, can hit neutral with these Seed Bombs, but is going to struggle to deal damage back when you have that amazing Wing Attack and Night Slash coming out from the Gliscor.
Yeah, almost 3 whole Night Slashes. We see a no shield on the first, Caleb recognizing that it would be the one that is not boosted. However, the wing attacks are going to be coming through enough to knock out. We see a no shield from our trainer on the left. This will knock out that Trevenant. Game 1 goes to blepnir.
Coming into Game 2, Shadow Gliscor really did seem like the MVP of that battle for blepnir, and I'm curious what Caleb can bring to counter that Pokemon, because it feels like he just has a huge weakness to either the fast move typing or the charged move typing on a majority of the Pokemon on his team. And we are flying into our next game with a mirror lead of the Purified Sableyes out on the field for both these trainers. But again, we see that Shadow Gliscor and Mawile in the back for blepnir. So I feel like you just have to let this mirror play out for a little bit, maybe get some information on who has the higher attack stat thanks to these charge move priority events. I don't think we actually saw one register here. I think this was just Caleb decided to attack and blepnir did not. But you can get some information, and you can put these Sableye within KO range for the other Pokemon on your team, which is a great setup moving forwards. I just can't help but wonder who's going to be the first person to switch, or are these Sableye just going to go?
I think what I would like to see from Caleb is staying in, and we do see it. It's a nice catch on the fairy type of Mawile that's not going to do a ton of damage, but it allows Caleb to come in on the Medicham. It won't take a lot of damage from these Fire Fangs, and look at the moveset on Caleb's Medicham. It is Dynamic Punch and Ice Punch. Really a surprise factor here, though a Play Rough is reached. Now Caleb needs to make a decision. He does shield. That is, I think, the right decision. This would do a massive amount of damage.
And also, this Medicham has been able to counter down the Mawile. It is a Fairy Steel type Pokemon using a Fire type fast move, but that means that those counters were neutral, and as a result, this Medicham is coming into this next matchup absolutely loaded with energy. Could potentially even farm down this Sableye, but would have to give up another shield here, and it does look like Caleb wants to invest, and I can't blame him. These Ice Punches are going to be so critical against the Gliscor, which it looks like blepnir is just trying to switch in to catch.
Yeah, that was a bit unfortunate for Caleb there. It was a charge move priority between that Ice Punch and that Foul Play. I think Caleb could have farmed down, but he still has the ability to get 2 Ice Punches off against blepnir here, and blepnir really does not want to take a double super effective Ice Punch onto his Gliscor.
He does not, and it looks like Caleb is ready to throw another Ice Punch, drawing out blepnir's final shield here. I think my biggest question is, will the Medicham be able to hang on long enough to throw another Ice Punch? I don't think Caleb thinks that, as the Noctowl now is sent in to sort of weaken this Gliscor to make the matchup a little bit easier in the endgame.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty close. Caleb still has all 3 Pokemon left. That Medicham still has a little bit of health. It'd be able to do some nice counter damage here. We're going to see the Night Slash come out, and does blepnir still have a shield?
No, I believe both these trainers have used both shields in this game.
Okay, so it's a bit interesting that Caleb overfarmed there and is going for the Sky Attack, but I think this is going to be about enough to knock out this Shadow Gliscor here.
It's going to be close, just barely missing that knockout, but we'll have the opportunity to fast move it down. We'll have to take a Night Slash first from the Gliscor, but even if this were to have knocked out, he still had 2 Pokemon in the back. Instead, it's just going to be the Sky Attack to pick up the knockout and bring us into Game 3.
Yeah, so coming out of Game 2, I really liked the Medicham pick from Caleb there, giving him a really solid counter to that Mawile. We were talking about how it's Steel and Fairy type, so those counters are doing neutral damage. Normally you'd think a Fairy type has a very positive matchup against the fighting type of Medicham. However, because it doesn't have a super effective fast move, it's running Fire Fang, so it's only neutral, non-stab damage. A lot of the matchups it needs to. And here's a very positive matchup, actually. The Registeel versus the Mawile. Fire Fang doing super effective damage. We'll just see how much it does, especially after this first power-up punch.
I was going to say Mawile can also start throwing these power-up punches to boost its attack for future matchups. So Caleb leaving this Registeel on the field is huge for Blepnir and gives him an opportunity to build up energy like we saw on the Medicham in Game 2. And I'm not even sure these Zap Cannons are going to add up. An attack, okay, I take that back. That did so much damage.
Oh,
wow.
What an interesting turn of events here. We're going to have a Sableye in the back for the Medicham, and the Mawile is almost completely knocked out with one charge move.
That was an incredible amount of damage, and possibly why you don't really see Mawile as the fairy-type Pokemon of choice, given that it seems teched perfectly to counter that Registeel. For now, though, Sableye with the foul play will be stopped by a shield. Gliscor holding on in the red will have the opportunity to throw a Night Slash of its own into this Sableye, but it's going to be neutral damage, and as a result, Sableye should be able to hold on for a few more turns.
Yeah, a bit unfortunate. We do see the attack boost on this Gliscor, but the Gliscor doesn't have that much health left. We're seeing that the second Night Slash goes no shielded, and the question is, how does Caleb want to farm this down? The Registeel will take longer because it's not doing as much fast move damage, but that's honestly a good thing because he'll get closer to his next charge move, and if he's been counting correctly, he knows this is not an Earthquake, so a very solid no shield from Caleb here.
You say it's solid, but with the attack boost, that certainly was a bit nerve-wracking to watch play out. Even though Registeel has so much bulk, sometimes it feels like when it's down into the red, you do have to be a little bit more careful on how you play it. Zap Cannon will draw out the final shield from Blepnir. It looks like Caleb still has his 2 shields, and now it's Medicham.
It's huge. He got the attack debuff onto the Sableye. That means the Shadow Claws are going to be doing less damage, and he's got Dynamic Punch here, which even though it's resisted is going to be the best move that Medicham can throw in this situation because of how much damage it does. And compared to Psychic, the other option, it's only single resisted, not double resisted.
A unique choice from Caleb that is already paying off this early on in the tournament. Will finally spend a shield here to block the damage from this foul play on the Medicham, allowing it to throw an Ice Punch, which is all you need at this point to pick up the knockout on that Sableye.
Yeah, so this Ice Punch came at the same time as that foul play, preventing the second foul play from that Sableye. Now the Mawile and the Gliscor are both on their last legs. Razor thin margins here for victory.
Razor thin margins, but sometimes all you need is to shave a little bit of extra damage there for the knockouts. Caleb winning 2-1 in the set, moving on in the tournament undefeated.
Yeah, very impressive stuff for both of our battlers there on stage. Really some tongue-in-cheek play from our battlers, really close. I loved the final moment of that final battle. 2 Pokemon.
We're going to be seeing Caleb Peng as well as Conglaser.
Well, Caleb Peng did kind of walk the razor's edge in his earlier matchup on stream, able to defeat a Shadow Gliscor, but I think this team has a lot of different things to offer. This is a more classic, traditional team that we've seen here in San Diego this weekend. Again, kind of a copy-paste from that top usage charts. Conglaser with Trevenant, Umbreon, Galarian Stunfisk, Medicham, Noctowl, and Lantern. But I think the more interesting team is on the right side. What do you think, Defy?
I definitely agree. We see a double steal strategy from Caleb Peng, bringing the Registeel, the Trevenant, the Bastiodon. His signature Pokemon also has the plush right there for him, as well as the Noctowl, Purified Sableye, and Medicham. When we see double steal with trainers, you would think, oh, Registeel and Galarian Stunfisk. But no, Caleb Peng really likes to use that Bastiodon, which, like you said, it's polarizing to trainers. It either wins hard or loses hard.
No, exactly. The climate in San Diego is known for being very temperate year-round, but Bastiodon is either the summer or the winter. It's either very happy time outside or very, very sad times in the cold. That being said, Conglaser does have very neutral matchups here, but what I'm looking at are the Galarian Stunfisk and the Medicham. Those two Pokemon are going to make these Steel-type Pokemon on Caleb's side not quite as useful because the matchups are so tough. That being said, I think Caleb will probably, will probably default to a more neutral matchup. Maybe the Trevenant, Noctowl, Sableye, Medicham, those four will come out to play. That being said, we're heading into game number 1 here. Our leads are on the field, and it looks like Caleb picks up a great lead with a Sableye into Trevenant.
Yes, the Sableye is going to be doing super effective damage, so we're going to be seeing a swap here. Caleb opting to stay in with the Sableye and going all the way up to the return and going straight for it. A bold move.
Conglaser instantly no shielding the return, and that's going to deal a lot of damage to his water and electric type Pokemon. Reaching for the Surf here, Caleb has a decision to make. And he actually no shields a potential Thunderbolt there. Going to absorb that neutral charge attack damage, but another Surf is coming here shortly.
And there it goes. Goes to the next Surf. Caleb deciding that he is going to preserve this Noctowl, keeping it even when he had the opportunity to switch, which is really interesting. A lot of times you see like, my opponent switch, I'm going to switch too. I'm going to save this Sableye. But Caleb thinking, no, I think this is exactly where my Sableye wants to be right now. And is going to try to Shadow Claw down the Lantern, but cannot quite make it. Double shielding the Sableye here.
And the reason being, he does have that Noctowl in the back. So even if this Sableye is KO'd, he does have the Noctowl to handle the Trevenant. However, there is a Galarian Stunfisk waiting in Conglaser's back line versus the Registeel from Caleb. So deciding to come in here with the Galarian Stunfisk, I think Sableye will aim to deal some neutral damage, but this Steel-type Pokemon in the back might be the deciders.
It very well may be. So we're going to see this foul play go up against the Galarian Stunfisk. The Sableye still fighting, but now has no shields left to hide behind. No shields, not even the shield Pokemon in Bastiodon to hide behind. And the Sableye now will be cleared off the field.
Actually actively bringing in the Registeel here, looking to land a Focus Blast. We know that 2 charge attacks are required in order to KO the Registeel. Coming through the first Earthquake, no switch outs here, no fancy attempts to catch an Earthquake onto the Noctowl and expose it against the ground and Steel type Galarian Stunfisk. Earthquake does connect, going for the Focus Blast, trying to take away this final shield. This is a pretty tricky situation though.
Yeah, so the Focus Blast hits the shield, protects the Galarian Stunfisk. The Galarian Stunfisk, the Rock Slide isn't going to be enough. It needs to get to the Earthquake. Goes for the Rock Slide. I'm not sure if this is going to take it out. Perhaps trying to get get some additional energy here. But will the Registeel get to the Focus Blast? It does!
Registeel clutches up the Focus Blast. The Rock Slide was not enough, and it is going to deliver a KO onto the Galarian Stunfisk, coming in with the Noctowl, and this has to be feeling like checkmate.
It does. We saw Conglaser shaking his head earlier, knowing that there is nothing to be done. Caleb Peng's very dapper Noctowl going to deliver the final blow here against the Trevenant and can secure a Game 1 victory for Caleb Peng.
Noctowl with a golden hat here on the Golden Coast, taking that game number 1 victory over his opponent Conglaser. I feel like Conglaser had all the pieces in place, but execution. It all comes down to being able to close on those win conditions and deny your opponents theirs.
Head down to the field, see which strategies will play out for the best. And we have Medicham versus Medicham here on the field, taking a look at the movesets. I think they are both Ice Punch Psychic.
I believe they are.
Caleb Peng has Dynamic Punch, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. Dynamic Punch and Ice Punch. We do see the Noctowl counter swap into the Sableye. This is a bit of a tricky situation, though, because the Noctowl is a great answer for both the Sableye and the Medicham on Caleb's side. He's going to try to land the return here and equalize this matchup a bit more in terms of HP, but I am a little bit concerned about that Medicham because the Noctowl has such a positive matchup against it.
So here we have the Noctowl doing those neutral wing attacks. Wing attack being the attack that really changed the game in this most recent Go Battle League season, has really changed it up for the Flyers. Caleb Peng shielding his Sableye and going right for the foul play, threatening to knock out the Noctowl, forcing a shield on the side of Conglaser.
Trying to recognize these energy intervals. Can he possibly wing attack all the way down as Sableye just gets picked apart? 4 wing attacks are enough to KO. Coming in with the Medicham, actually, Caleb is going to, I guess, let this Sky Attack through? Yeah, he will.
Interesting. Now, Medicham really can do quite a bit of work with that neutral counter damage with those ice punches, but Noctowl is going to get to the Sky Attack at the same time. Medicham gets to use its move first. Does Conglaser want to be able to use this move? Does not. Allows the ice punch through. Clears the Noctowl off the field of play. Medicham comes in to be met with Caleb's own Noctowl counter swap into Lantern.
And we can see it play out on the stage as well. This is a very, very tough matchup for that Dapper Noctowl as he does reach for the Shadow Ball, trying to make a bit of an impact. But again, at every twist and turn, it seemed like Caleb was just one step behind since the lead situation.
Yeah, that Noctowl, while it may be dressed for success, I don't know how much success it's going to have against the Lantern, especially with a Thunderbolt coming in. Super effective damage. Noctowl is so bulky, though, it hangs tough, which allows the Lantern to get a little bit more energy. Is going to have to tank this Shadow Ball, but Lantern can do that easily and is already at a move.
Lantern reaching for the Surf here. Caleb gonna no shield it. He only has 1 Protect Shield remaining. Lantern's got a ton of energy, and there is still a Medicham that is fully healthy in the back. 1 more spark will be enough, and Conglaser evens up the series.
Decisive game 3 in our Group D winners finals. We will have to decide, how is Caleb going to come back from this? He's now on the back foot after winning the first game. The momentum may have shifted a little bit. Caleb's really going to try to have to wrestle this game back. The winners finals here of the Group D bracket. We head to the field and we have Medicham versus Galarian Stunfisk, a favorable lead for Caleb Peng.
Counter swapping into the Noctowl here. Caleb Peng gonna stay for a few extra moments with his Medicham. He has got no other options in the back. He's got 2 Ghost type Pokemon in the Sableye and the Trevenant. I'm not sure he can afford to switch out. If he does, maybe he'll reach for the Sableye, but this is really, really tough.
Let's see, we have the Noctowl going right for the Sky Attack. Caleb lets that Sky Attack go through on the Medicham. Medicham can tank 1, but those wing attacks are starting to really add up. Caleb goes for the Ice Punch. Conglaser shields it up, wanting to get a little bit more energy on the Noctowl. Already at a Sky Attack, we see a swap out from Caleb.
Swapping into the Sableye, he's going to let the Sky Attack through again, recognizing that Noctowl can do damage, but it needs a second Sky Attack to put this Sableye in danger of being KO'd. Going to reach for the foul play. It will be a charge move priority, and Sableye gets to go first, finally silencing this Noctowl. Actually, excuse me, Conglaser sends his second Protect Shield to help.
And the Noctowl, since that was a charge move priority, the Noctowl Sky Attack fires immediately after. Caleb decides to deploy his first Protect Shield of this battle, but Sableye not able to do any fast move pressure with those Shadow Claws. And we see a swap maybe trying to make a catch and doesn't work out for Conglaser.
Going for the foul play here. I think Caleb can comfortably get off 2. He will win the charge move priority against the Galarian Stunfisk if the charge attacks do align, as the Rock Slide is prepared. Going for another foul play, and again, just chipping away patiently, piece by piece, brick by brick. He wants to deal as much damage as he can.
Yeah, really wanting to utilize the last little bit of this Sableye. Actually swaps out and brings in the Medicham, gets a at least 1 counter damage, and then absorbs this Rock Slide energy, leaving the Galarian Stunfisk with not a charge move banked.
And as he sees here, oh my goodness, the Sableye has too much HP. You can't much shot it down. He forces the Galarian Stunfisk to throw energy, and he is clearing the way for his Trevenant to to come in here and sweep through 3 Pokemon.
We will have to see how it goes. That Noctowl, though, from Conglaser still has some health left. The Trevenant is going to have to throw a charge move to be able to clear the Noctowl away. Conglaser brings in his own Trevenant, but Caleb has a shield where Conglaser has none.
It's a charge move priority, and Caleb's Peng Shadow Ball will connect into the opposing Trevenant for the knockout. He's got one more obstacle in the way to day 2. Knockdown comes out. He just needs the Seed Bomb, and the Trevenant is going to flip everything and sweep all 3 of these Pokemon from Conglaser.
Oh my goodness, there is the Trevenant using the Seed Bomb, knocks out the Noctowl. Trevenant has branched a path to victory for Caleb Peng.
My goodness, if you would have told me we would have entered today with a Trevenant beating a Noctowl to send Caleb Peng to day 2, I wouldn't have believed you. It sounds like a storyline.
Yeah, and I don't know if I would have believed you if you would have told me Caleb would have left his Bastiodon completely on the bench. That and the Registeel. We didn't see either Steel type from Caleb.
I know, he says it's his favorite, but maybe it's just a bluff. You know, maybe he's not showing all of his cards here.
Let's talk about the bracket. Let's talk about the tournament that we're going to be seeing play out here shortly. This is such an incredibly talented bracket. I mean, look at the winners semifinals. We have Ramberto, we have Nino. Gucci and Caleb are going to be duking it out for their spot in the winners finals. And they haven't lost a single game this entire time. And I mean, Caleb too, he's typically hanging out here with us. Like, I don't know what he's doing over on the winner semis, but clearly something is working out for him. The losers side, though, is interesting as well. And, you know, Phoebe, I think you were talking about this earlier. We have a defense form Deoxys.
Yeah, it's the only defense form Deoxys I think that we've seen all day yesterday, and getting it into the losers finals here, or the losers side of the bracket in day 2. I believe that's Mystic Mamba who's running it, going up against Herbalife 009, who I don't think we got to see yesterday on stage, but we'll see him. We'll see them today. And on the other side of the losers bracket, we have Conglaser against Onion Frank. Definitely another matchup that we'll be wanting to be paying attention to.
Yeah, so I cannot wait to see how these matches are going to play out today. It is going to be such an incredible tournament, and if you are at home, make sure you are ready to tune in for the long haul, because once we get started with these games, we're just going to Pokemon Go.
We're not stopping
We're not
whatsoever.
stopping. I would love to take a moment, though, to talk about just how exactly the winners semifinals are going to go and some of the teams that are featured there, because we were talking about this a little bit. You know, Caleb's team, the Bastiodon, a pretty cool Pokemon. Oh, Caleb, you're here with us.
I'm here.
What are you doing back here?
You know, maybe I thought I was casting this one, but I'm in the wrong spot today.
I mean, if you want to cast, man, we'd love to have you, but I feel like you'd rather be competing, as you've made a pretty deep run in this tournament. How did it go for you yesterday?
Oh yeah, it far exceeded my expectations. You know, I think I just didn't want to go 0-2, and at a certain point I was like, you know what, let's just do our best and see what happens. And luckily I got myself a spot here in the top 8, and I'm excited to be here. If I lose all my battles after this, I'm okay with that, you know, but it's been fun.
Definitely better than 0-2, that's for sure. The word on the street is that you've only used Bastiodon a singular time in your battles thus far. I've got a question.
Yeah.
If you had the ability to switch it out at this point, would you? Or would you rather keep your signature Pokemon even though you haven't utilized it much?
Oh, I definitely am going to keep it. And I will say...
You're not going to release it?
I won't say how many times I specifically use it, but it does have a 100% win rate at this tournament so far.
All right. So 100% of the time, it works every time.
Exactly.
Good to know. Good to know. How has it been different, you know, competing versus, you know, casting one of these events?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely pretty nerve-wracking as a competitor, you know, and I wasn't even going in with a very competitive mindset, but there's always just that adrenaline rushing. And, you know, I know everyone probably realizes at home too, but when you're so used to looking at the teams, when you're commentating or when you're spectating, you really forget when this competitor's on stage, they don't know what the opponents bring, right? So somebody's like, oh, they have this in the back, like, why are they doing this? But they don't have it. And the whole time you're sitting on stage, you're just playing a guessing game, like, oh, what is it going to be and stuff. And it's much more confusing when you're sitting on stage battling than it may seem at home too. So a big shout out to any competitors that have been on the stage or at these tournaments, because there's definitely a lot to consider every time you're battling.
For sure, for sure. And do you have any tips for anybody at home who might wants to get started with all this?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, everyone that starts playing Pokemon Go PP was not very good at one point in time, right? And I think
that's me right now. I will admit that.
Yeah,
I'm not good
that's
at this
everyone,
right now.
right? Especially like any of my friends will know, I was pretty bad at this game at many points in time. And I think the most important thing is whenever you lose, there's usually things to reflect on, right? Maybe you just got complete out team comped, but a lot of times there are win conditions as well too. So I always tell some people I coach, like, losing is learning, right? If you're losing, there's always a learning lesson there. Maybe there's nothing you could have done, but even realizing that there's nothing you could have done is an important skill to have. And I think really capitalizing on that and learning everything you can from all your losses can really help you improve day to day and be on the big stage.
Awesome. Well, Phoebe, do you have any final questions for Caleb?
I have one more, but I did want to say that as a longtime friend, I disagree that there was any point in time that you were bad at this game. There have been many times I've taken many losses.
He's just
from
being nice.
Going on the theme of sharing things with those of our viewers at home, what's something that happened maybe off stage that you could share with them in terms of your experience or a battle that you had?
Yeah, I guess two quick things. One, I had an amazing set of battles with Dapperdis, which was off stream. It was my winner's semifinals. I lost game 1, and then we tied game 2. I thought I was completely out of it at that point, right? But we simultaneously knocked out. I was able to win game 3, and then on the 4th game, the decisive game, I won with like a sliver of health left, right, to land a Shadow Ball on his Medicham. So it was an incredible set of battles. I wish people could have seen it, but either way, it was great battles and great time to battle him. And I guess the other thing is it's been really exciting to be here, especially in the top 8. It's been even more exciting to be here with some friends as well too. So one of my friends, Ramberto, and my teammates, who we even carpooled down together, he's also in the top 8s. And luckily we don't have to face each other off the bats, but we're both very excited to be here. And honestly, I was probably more excited for him to make top 8 than me, because it's also his first time competing too. So very excited to see him battle and all the other competitors as well.
That's awesome. Well, good luck to you, and good luck to everybody who's going to be competing in top 8 today. I think we are ready to get things started. So why don't we go ahead and throw it to the casters. Speedy, DeFi, take it away.
Well, let's see these battlers on stage. I think we are all set up and ready to go. All right, on the left side, Gucci Gang 69 versus Caleb Peng on the right side. Can you just lay out these teams here?
So Gucci Gang bringing the Lantern, Umbreon, Noctowl, Galarian Stunfisk, Medicham, and Alolan Ninetales. I believe this is a Powder Snow Alolan Ninetales, and this is definitely strictly a meta team. I believe all of these Pokemon are in that top 12 bracket that we keep referencing. The Gucci Gang using the most effective tactics available in this matchup today.
We saw a couple matches yesterday where Umbreon and Alola Ninetales were on opposing sides of the matchup. Obviously, the Alola Ninetales always gets the better of that, but I think when combined, they make for a really, really powerful core, especially against Dark and Ghost-type opponents. They seem to have nearly perfect coverage in most situations. That being said, Caleb Peng, a little more of a unique team on the opposing side, and he's had a great time here at the tournament as well with two Steel-type Pokemon. This is heavy metal. He's got the Registeel, the Trevenant, the Bastiodon, Noctowl, Sableye, and that Medicham. I think what stands out the most to me here is that the other 4 Pokemon on his team really supplement his, weakness to fighting and ground-type Pokemon. He's got plenty of answers for Galarian Stunfisk and Medicham.
Yeah, bringing not only double Steel, but also double Ghost, bringing both the Trevenant and the Purified Sableye. We know Purified Sableye can be incredible with that Shadow Claw damage. Really just does not want to meet the Noctowl on the other side of the field.
Caleb's really shown his grit with, limited play, as I would call it. He brings those 4 Pokemon pretty often, the Trevenant, the Sableye, the Medicham, and the Noctowl, with Registeel kind of sprinkled in, and still no Bastiodon to be seen on stream at all. So I guess for Gucci Gang, he's kind of looking at a limited format here. Maybe he can cross a couple of these Pokemon off his list.
But let's see what we've got here. We've got Galarian Stunfisk versus Caleb Sableye to start off this match. Looks like these trainers are opting to stay into this more neutral matchup.
Yeah, you can see Caleb kind of shaking his head a little bit there. He's been great on the lead predictions thus far, but this is a very neutral matchup, and it's like almost like a smoke screen. It's hard to tell what's behind this Pokemon, and I think based on his back lineup, that could be really critical to make the correct prediction there.
Yes, taking a look at the back lineup, we can see the Alolan Ninetales on the side of Gucci Gang and the Registeel for Caleb Peng. So Gucci Gang really needs to fight for that switch advantage. Otherwise, yeah, Gucci Gang is going to do very well if he can get switch.
Great shield there by Caleb, calling the early Earthquake. Here comes a shield from Gucci Gang as well. He wants to continue to apply pressure, maybe even strip away that second protection. And the switch into Registeel trying to catch the Rock Slide. But this is bad news for Caleb Peng, as the Earthquake is going to make his Registeel wobble.
It will. I don't predict Registeel ironing out a path to victory here because that Medicham is going to come in and counter it down.
Coming in with the Zap Cannon here, we know it takes 2 charge attacks to KO the Medicham, but the Zap Cannon will make an impact nonetheless, draining half of the HP and triggering the attack fall. This is actually even worse, Stephanie, because that means Medicham got probably 1 or 2 extra counters worth of energy against this Sableye.
Yeah, so now the Medicham is free to get at least this Ice Punch, can potentially even get to 1 more against Caleb's Sableye, and knowing there's that full health Medicham in the back, that's going to have a really tough time against the Alolan Ninetales.
It is tough, but not quite as tough as usual, because that is not a charm Alolan Ninetales. The Powder Snow is a bit palatable. You just have to call the Dazzling Gleams, and there's still 1 shield on either side for these trainers. Sableye looking for a full Shadow Claw down, actually switching out into his own Medicham to get 2 counters worth of advantage.
And then here comes the Alolan Ninetales, which again is probably not the most ideal Pokemon that Caleb wanted to see. Alolan Ninetales 1 Powder Snow away from that Dazzling Gleam. Gucci Gang knows that that Caleb Peng is running the Dynamic Punch as well as the Ice Punch, puts up an early shield.
Oh, this is a really precarious situation. Caleb Peng needs to call a bait, and he calls the Weather Ball here. Is going to throw up his Protect Shield on a bait move, and that is really, really tough because now the Dazzling Gleam is coming in any second here. Oh, he switches in the Glaring Stunfisk to catch the Dynamic Punch. Wow.
That is so tough. That is so much energy to knock out the Galarian Stunfisk. And then here is that Alolan Ninetales, who is loaded on energy and is completely ready here with the Dazzling Gleam and has just about another Weather Ball ready.
I think Caleb's got this. I think he has the return on the Sableye. He pushes for the return and he gets it. 1 Powder Snow short. Caleb Peng springs to life here with the return and is going to knock out the Alolan Ninetales.
What incredible play. So Caleb taking an early win here against Gucci Gang. That was so close. 1 Powder Snow away. I thought the Weather Ball was there. I was looking like, is it ready? Is it ready? But not quite. But Caleb Peng managed to dance around it, and let's see how this battle turns out. We have a very great lead for Caleb Peng, Trevenant versus Medicham.
Yeah, going to send some chills up Gucci's spine there with the Trevenant lead into the Psychic and Fighting type Pokemon, making the same switch into the Galarian Stunfisk, and there is no instant swap into a Fighting type counter, which means there's no Medicham in the back. This Trevenant has a lot of work to do.
It really does, especially when you look at the back. I see a double steal line from Caleb Peng.
We're going to see the Shadow Ball come through here from Caleb Peng. Gucci Gang is not going to shield the Shadow Ball, which is really tough because now the Galarian Stunfisk is within Seed Bomb range.
Yeah, but Galarian Stunfisk gets to this Rock Slide, getting a shield from Caleb. Caleb knows that he needs this Trevenant to do a lot of work here, knowing that Medicham is still around. Trevenant getting a bunch of energy. Caleb, I think, has to shield here.
He will. Yeah,
yeah,
he will.
That was a lot of energy that could potentially go to waste. Trevenant getting all the way Shadow Clawing down.
Oh, actually reaching for a switch here. He's reaching for one of his Steel-type Pokemon. Very interesting strategy. Caleb Peng is tapping furiously on that as Gucci Gang weighs his options. Comes in with the Alolan Ninetales, and now here's the Registeel, and the Medicham gets drawn back out.
So drawing out the Medicham potentially so that the Bastiodon could potentially sweep in the end. Registeel going for the Zap Cannon, potentially going to try to knock out half of the Medicham's health. Gets the attack drop, so very lucky on the side of Caleb Peng. Gucci Gang doesn't have that heavy hitting dynamic punch on his Medicham, so has to go for the Psychic, which is resisted, doesn't do a lot of damage, but gets a defense fall.
Oh, another Zap Cannon coming through here, though. This is definitely going to draw away one of those Protect Shields from Gucci Gang, and this is really precarious because this additional energy is going to allow the Medicham to strike back against that Trevenant. It's going to be really tough because I think that Trevenant will faint from one Ice Punch, and Medicham has two.
But Trevenant has energy loaded and available, and Trevenant is going to win the charge move priority against Medicham. Draws another shield away. Now the Medicham is going to go knock out the Trevenant with Ice Punch. Caleb has to put it all on the back of that Bastion.
Can Trevenant hang on here? Oh, there was a debuff, and Trevenant hangs on, making the switch into Alolan Ninetales, catching the Seed Bomb. But guess what? Things are about to go from bad to worse here as the Rock and Steel type Bastiodon pounces onto the field, and it's gonna crush this Alolan Ninetales.
You can hear the crowd going wild behind us at the sight of this Bastiodon. So Bastiodon is going to secure this for Caleb. The Dazzling Gleam doing nothing to the shield Pokemon, and is just throwing rocks. Poor Alolan Ninetales can't do a thing. Bastiodon now loaded on energy against a low health Medicham, and is going to be able to knock it out with this flamethrower.
It's cool here in San Diego, but Caleb Peng turning up the heat with the flamethrower on the Medicham and the smackdown for emphasis.
Yeah, and the crowd goes wild. The star-studded matchup, Caleb Peng versus Gucci Gang. Caleb Peng moving on to the winners finals, knocking Gucci Gang down to the lower bracket.
Wow, impressive plays there. We were wondering, Stephanie, I was starting to lose faith here. I didn't think we were going to see Bastiodon on stream, but it finally made an appearance. A signature line that I believe Caleb has also played sometimes in the Go Battle League, that Trevenant with Double Steel.
Yeah, it can be very, very good. You saw Caleb really valuing that Trevenant, investing in it with the shields, getting a lot of energy so it could knock out the Medicham, so it could knock out the Galarian Stunfisk, and then leaving the Bastiodon to sweep against the Medicham at the very end and completely render the Alolan Ninetales to be useless. Yeah, maybe we can take a look at the bracket as the losers finals, as we step away from the lower side of the bracket, kind of refresh where we're at in the winners. So we saw Conglaser move on to the losers finals. This match we're about to see of Romberto and Caleb Peng, the loser of that match will be facing Conglaser.
Yeah, absolutely. Conglaser very impressive on the early goings. Nino as well, but Conglaser just outlasting yet another opponent. Excuse me, this is the winners finals. Roberto versus Caleb Peng. This is going to be a very, very exciting series here as these two trainers have just remained in the winners bracket throughout, and that's a good place to be.
It really is. It is comfortable. It is very comfortable to be on the winner's side of the bracket. And again, high stakes. The further we go, the stakes get higher in day 2. The winner of this match is going to move on into the grand finals. The winner has effectively punched their ticket to Yokohama once you get into that grand finals pairing. The loser having to fight Conglaser, who is fresh, who has just been battling and has so much experience today working his way through the loser side of the bracket. It is going to be really tough for the loser of this match to fight their way back into that grand final seat.
It absolutely will be. And speaking of raising the stakes, let's raise the number of games as well. This is a best of 5 here in the winners finals. And I think it's important to discuss for everybody at home as well, how the mind games change in a best of 5. We've been in a best of 3 mode this entire tournament. A lot of these trainers, that's what they've become accustomed to, right? You kind of release that pressure from your shoulders. Once you win that second matchup, you know it's over. But you need to win 3 battles in order to wrestle away this series. How do the mind games develop over the length of a series in a best of 5? How is it different?
It is incredibly different, a best of 5 over a best of 3. We talk about how that first match in a best of 3, that's your information gathering mission, and then you have to use that information very decisively.
Let's take a look here. Ramberto on the left with that awesome Frostlass playing card. He's got his Noctowl, Frostlass, Umbreon, Galarian Stunfisk, Trevenant, and Medicham. Looking at this team, the duo of Galarian Stunfisk and Medicham seems pretty tough for Caleb, but he does have those double ghosts to back him up.
Yeah, I really think the Ghost will have a lot of play here, especially that Trevenant being able to resist everything from Caleb Peng's Registeel. So Trevenant could definitely have some play as long as it avoids that very dapper, that very well-dressed Noctowl.
I agree. And on the flip side of here, opposing Ramberto, we do have Caleb Peng with his double Steel, double Ghost. I feel like I'm seeing double here. He's got the Registeel, the Trevenant, the Bastiodon, Noctowl, Spooky Sableye, and his Medicham.
We will have to see how Caleb utilizes both of his Ghosts and both of his Steel-type Pokemon here in this matchup and how he supplements them with the Noctowl and the Medicham. It allows for some ABB style of play, like we call it, like we saw earlier with the Registeel and the Bastiodon. You bring both your Steel users together in the back. That worked very well for him. He used the Bastiodon to great success, to the enjoyment of the crowd who was cheering. We will have to see if he decides to bring it again.
Well, our competitors can't hear us, so if there's one key Pokemon that I'd like to point out from each side, I think Ramberto needs to clear the skies for Noctowl. You look over at Caleb's Trevenant, Sableye, and Medicham. Those are 3 Pokemon that he leans on quite a bit. I'd love to see some Noctowl from Ramberto. On the opposing side, Caleb Peng's Registeel can be so critical here. Solid matchups against Noctowl and the Frostlass, as well as the Umbreon. Ramberto really needs to kind of find spots, find places for his Galarian Stunfisk, Medicham, and Trevenant.
And with that show of good sportsmanship, the fist bump, we are heading down to the field. We have Galarian Stunfisk on the side of Ramberto against Registeel for Caleb Peng. We can see that Caleb Peng nodding his head. He's ready. He knows this is going to be tough. The battle of the Steel.
Registeel kicks up its leg as it gathers energy for the Focus Blast here. We've seen the Galarian Stunfisk withstand one of these, and the Registeel can withstand an Earthquake in kind, but typically we would give the advantage here to Galarian Stunfisk. Overcharging, maybe anticipating a switch out, Caleb Peng going to no shield. He's very happy about how much damage he's done so far.
Yeah, advantage tends to go to the Galarian Stunfisk because it has that super effective Mud Shot damage, where that lock-on damage is doing nothing here. We see Ramberto going for the Rock Slide against the Registeel. Will it be enough?
Is it enough? Registeel says no chance, gets to a second Focus Blast here. This is actually something we've seen Ramberto do before, as he just dismisses that shield call. He's actually going to try to farm down this Registeel and get some additional energy, because it is very palatable for either of his Pokemon in the back.
So we will have to see what Ramberto decides to do, because it takes Registeel a long time to get to these charge moves. So he's gotten several Snarls worth of energy on the Umbreon before the Noctowl comes in.
Dapper Noctowl takes to the skies, and here comes a foul play from Ramberto's Umbreon as it looks to kind of wrestle away control of the matchup. And as we peek at the back lines here, I do think Ramberto does have a distinct advantage right now.
Yes, so Ramberto continues on. We have both shields still in play. Trainers have not decided to use any shields yet. Umbreon throwing the foul play, taking the Noctowl down to half health. There's the opposing Noctowl, and then Caleb bringing in the Sableye, which is really tough. The Shadow Claws from Sableye doing no damage to the opposing Noctowl.
It's very tough, but I think the rule here is to keep the Sableye away from the Umbreon. It has an even worse matchup against the pure Dark-type Pokemon. So Caleb trying to find value whatever he can. I think that's been a theme of his gameplay. Doing more with less has been his strategy so far, and Sableye needs to do a lot here to try to flip the advantage.
It does. Lots of foul plays going to be going through. We see Ramberto throw the Sky Attack. It'll be more than enough to knock out the Sableye. So Caleb Peng chooses to protect the Sableye to try to get at least another foul play off to threaten this Noctowl. But Noctowl, Ramberto deciding to shield this up.
Oh, wow, deciding to shield the knockdown, recognizing he's got a solid matchup here, does not want to lose that advantage. As our co-caster Tua Butters famously says, each charge attack's about 10 seconds, and the switch timer is 60 seconds, unable to reach for the switch here. Going to finally let the Sableye go here, Defy.
Yeah, and allowing his Noctowl to come back in. It has so much energy, but it takes also a lot of energy to chip away at this Umbreon. You need a lot of charge moves. That Sky Attack seeming to do no damage to Umbreon's thick skin, allowing another Sky Attack to come through. Roberto still doesn't need to shield.
Still doesn't need to use a Protect Shield. Umbreon down into the yellow, but it will dish a lot of damage back here as the foul play gets queued up. This knockdown from Caleb Peng is dressed for success, but it's got a lot of work to do here in the closing moments of this matchup.
Yeah, Caleb allowing the foul play to come through. I think recognizing that this Noctowl just doesn't have enough gas in the tank here, because although Caleb Peng's Noctowl at win style points, it's going to be able to take out the Umbreon here. There's still Ramberto's Noctowl in the back, and there's just not enough Sky Attacks. There's not enough energy for Caleb to be able to wrestle victory away. In that matchup, it seemed like Ramberto was in control the entire time.
I would agree, and I think a lot of this comes down to scouting. I think Roberto had an idea, had a notion of what Caleb Peng was going to bring. He doesn't prefer a very heavy steel type team in the first opening game of his series. He likes to kind of play with the opponent a bit, try to work his way through the series and bring the steel types later. We did see the Registeel lead, and that is true, but it wasn't that effective. Landing this 2 Focus Blasts, but affording Ramberto that key energy in the opening matchup.
Let's head down to the field. We have Frostlass locked onto that Noctowl.
Very, very tough lead here for Caleb Peng's Knockdown. He's going to reach immediately for the Registeel, and we see the instant counter swap into the Galarian Stunfisk. Now, this is critical. How much does Ramberto value switch advantage? Because if he gives it away here, this could be a very interesting matchup as it develops. Going straight for the Focus Blast. No Protect Shield here onto the Galarian Stunfisk, but Ramberto remembers the Rock Slide was not enough in game number 1. He needs to put this Registeel away.
He does, so he throws the Earthquake. Caleb Peng lets the Earthquake go through, and we're going to start to see those Mud Shots chip away at the Registeel. Registeel approaching the next Focus Blast, but Galarian Stunfisk getting to that Rock Slide first.
Again, Rock Slide is going to bounce off of this Registeel, but the question is, how does Ramberto handle the matchup? Here comes a Focus Blast. Will he repeat history and let it through? And he will, giving up switch advantage here.
Interesting, so now switch advantage goes to Caleb Peng. That might be one of those threads of opportunity for Caleb as he moves forward. Ramberto deciding which of his 2 Pokemon to bring in, chooses to bring in the Frostlass, leaving his 3rd Pokemon as hidden information moving forward.
Coming in with the Sableye here, Ramberto going straight for the Shadow Ball. The instant Protect Shield here from Caleb Peng. He does not want his Sableye to lose a lot of HP here. Sableye still very, very healthy. And in comes the Umbreon counter swap into the Noctowl. Now that Shadow Ball did more than just take a Protect Shield away. It set up this Umbreon with a shield advantage versus the opposing Noctowl.
Yes, one of those other strands of opportunity is certainly having shield advantage, which an Umbreon with 2 shields, we've seen it not work out already today.
Yes.
However, an Umbreon with 2 shields generally is a pretty safe bet that you are going to win that matchup.
It's going to be very tough for the Frostlass to beat the Sableye because the Frostlass will need 2 charge attacks to KO, whereas the Sableye, with its super effective Shadow Claw and Foul Play, will only need 1. So as these trainers are kind of micromanaging this matchup right here, they're also macro-managing the endgame.
Yeah, so really thinking about that backline matchup of the Frostlass, of the Sableye, really thinking that through. Caleb launching another Sky Attack into the Umbreon. Neither Pokemon, they're both approaching that deep red where you really have to be managing that every little sliver of health. Ramberto launching the Foul Play, knocking that Noctowl. It's getting close. Here comes the Sableye.
Coming in with the Frostlass here. This is a bit of a curious strategy. Some fast reaction time here by Caleb Peng, throwing the Foul Play, pulling away that first Protect Shield from Ramberto. But again, 2 charge attacks from the Frostlass are needed, and only 1 Foul Play will be a KO onto the Frostlass.
So Caleb choosing to shield this Shadow Ball. Ramberto going for the higher cost energy move. Now Sableye has an opportunity. Can it Shadow Claw down? Caleb Peng doesn't risk it. He throws the foul play. Ramberto shields it up.
The thing is, though, if an Avalanche lands here and Sableye can get a charge attack off against the Umbreon, this might be decisive. Going for the Avalanche here. Caleb Peng's Sableye needs to hang on through this Avalanche damage. He needs it to survive.
Let's see if it does. The Avalanche comes. The Sableye can't hang on. The Knock Towel able to take out the Frostlass with one move. There's a Sky Attack ready. Umbreon is thick. Will the Sky Attack be enough to knock out?
True test of Umbreon's might right here. Sky Attack connects. Umbreon hangs on, goes for a Snarl here, and is not able to get the KO. Caleb sneaks away with the win.
That was incredible. You can hear the crowd shock. That came down to slivers of health. One fast move. That was intense.
Caleb Peng able to even up the series here just by a literal thread of HP in that closing moment there. What an impressive play. You can see him kind of trying to figure things out because at this point, one game each, we've transitioned out of a best of 5 mindset. Now, that was the warm-up stage, if I may. Now, we're in the best of 3 mindset. 2 more wins will seal it. As we head into game number 3, Ramberto on the left side, Caleb Peng on the right. This is the winners finals.
And here we have the matchup of Umbreon versus Registeel. Registeel able to throw super effective Focus Blast. Ramberto switching in the Galarian Stunfisk. And Caleb content to keep the Registeel in and throw that Focus Blast. Ramberto shielding up the Galarian Stunfisk.
Ramberto did not like the way that game 2 went. He's going to try to shield up the Galarian Stunfisk, keep it in this matchup a bit longer. Going straight for the Earthquake. Caleb Peng has not shielded an Earthquake yet. Does he change his own script as well? Caleb Peng will actually shield up the Earthquake.
Yes, so shields up the Earthquake, so we are down to 1 shield on either side. The Registeel gets to the Focus Blast first. Ramberto invests both shields early in this Galarian Stunfisk.
Yeah, we can see definitely changing up the strategy. We talk a lot about flexibility this weekend and how good trainers can change it up, and we see the switch into the Sableye to catch this Earthquake.
Yeah, so Sableye is going to be able to handle just 1 Earthquake coming from the Galarian Stunfisk. Ramberto still, the switch timer just expires for the Galarian Stunfisk, decides to throw a Rock Slide. Will Caleb shield? Does not. Allows the Sableye to go into the deep red. Will get to a foul play? No.
Stunfisk putting in so much work here for Ramberto. And I want to talk as well about the signals that Ramberto just sent Caleb. He too shielded against Registeel. He was telling Caleb, I'm weak to Registeel in the back. I want to protect my Galarian Stunfisk. It's my best chance. But I think that was a huge bluff. We're going to see the Protect Show come up here from Caleb because there is another answer to Registeel in the back for Ramberto. And if it comes out, it could be tricky.
It could be very tricky. So we see Caleb going through with the Registeel, going to blast the Galarian Stunfisk out of here. But then I think we're going to see the Medicham come out, which is going to be disastrous for Caleb. As you see, he nods his head. That is going to be really tough for him to overcome.
Going straight for the Zap Cannon again, doing as much as possible. Registeel wants that attack fall, wants to get to another Zap Cannon here to make this matchup closer. Medicham loses half of its health, but no attack fall. Ramberto is unstoppable here.
Yeah, so we're going to see the Medicham actually undercharge the Psychic, get a little bit more, a couple, 1-2 more counters worth of energy. And I think we can see the smiles from these trainers as Medicham is going to start countering down this Bastiodon. Ramberto fully charging up this Psychic, and we are going to see the Bastiodon, who was so victorious before, is just getting its health chipped away.
With each counter, a piece of that Bastiodon's armor just gets stripped away by the Medicham. Going for the Stone Edge here. This will secure the knockout, but maybe hoping for a knockdown in the back. Caleb is not going to be very happy as the Umbreon surfaces here, and Umbreon is just such a bulky, incredibly strong Pokemon. Foul play will do some damage, but I think 2 foul plays will be enough.
Yeah, so when Ramberto reaches this next foul play, there's foul play number 1. We might even need 2 foul plays. With the Snarl damage, I think 1 more will do it. we're going to see the Bastiodon go ahead and throw the next move. The Stone Edge will land on the Umbreon, but you need a lot of Stone Edges to be able to take out an Umbreon. Umbreon will throw this next foul play. I think it should be either enough or very close to knock out the Bastiodon, and that is a victory for Ramberto.
Some Pokemon are simply feast or famine, and we saw earlier on Bastiodon's ability to just pummel the Alolan Ninetales from Gucci Gang 69. This time, though, Ramberto had all the right tools in place in order to conquer that opponent. And again, once that Bastiodon came out against Medicham, there was just almost no win condition at all.
Battle, and we will see Frostlass on Trevenant. It's a battle of the ghosts.
Ghost-type Pokemon on the field here. We do see the Shadow Claws just kind of tearing through that Frostlass, but the Powder Snow's doing the same, going straight for the Seed Bomb. This early commitment to the Seed Bomb tells us that Caleb is willing to grind this matchup out. He's not going for the hard-hitting Shadow Ball. He might even push this to the 2-shield matchup because he is so confident in his Trevenant.
Yeah, so we see the Frostlass throwing an Avalanche. You have to shield Trevenant or it will get iced out. And then we see Ramberto switching in the Galarian Stunfisk. We see Caleb trying to get a lot of energy here and going right for the Seed Bomb. Ramberto shakes his head, decides not to shield.
Early no shield here on the Seed Bomb. We've seen a lot of trainers going straight for the Shadow Ball. Nino, I believe, got baited by a Seed Bomb in the last series. We're going to see a Rock Slide here from the Galarian Stunfisk. This will not be quite enough to KO the Trevenant, but it will bring it down very deep into the red. Trevenant going to look to aim the Shadow Ball in Stunfisk's direction, and it will reach it.
So Ramberto deciding, will I shield up my Galarian Stunfisk? No shield, the Shadow Ball lands. Now we have to decide, where do we value this energy? Do I value it on my Trevenant or on my Frostlass? Decides to get that one Shadow Claw of energy onto the Trevenant, but here is Noctowl locked in. You can see Caleb grinning through that mask. He knows how this is going to go.
Oh, going straight for the Shadow Ball here, and a no shield by Ramberto. Caleb Peng says, you switch the Trevenant out, I'll just put the Shadow Ball here instead. That's a KO onto the Frostlass. Here comes Noctowl. Ramberto bending the proverbial knee here. He's going to let these wing attacks pile through.
He is, and conceding the match here. Caleb deciding to launch the Sky Attack to end the match, and we are moving Speedy into a very decisive game number 5 between these two incredible battlers.
What an incredible series there. I really think, again, wrestling away that switch advantage is so critical. And when you bring these Pokemon on your team, I think that's part of the reason why Caleb actually prefers to play his Sableye and Trevenant, because they're not as reliant on switch advantage. But then he could change things up. If he brings the Bastiodon or the Noctowl, switch advantage is so important. So he has to adjust his play style as well as he equips these different Pokemon and compiles these different teams. So that being said, both these trainers have locked in their team. This is a decisive Game 5 in the winners finals.
And here we have Frostlass for Ramberto, Medicham for Caleb, and we see Caleb bringing in that Registeel. We've seen this matchup time and time again today, Galarian Stunfisk versus Registeel. Both Pokemon having incredibly powerful charge moves, capable of knocking the opponent off the field.
Some people might call this the old Steel versus the new Steel. Registeel was introduced into Pokemon Go first. It has been in the game longer, but Galarian Stunfisk is a very dominant force in the Play Pokemon Championship Series. Earthquake will land onto that Registeel, and as we've seen at least 2 times before, Rock Slide is not enough. Here comes a Focus Blast from the Registeel from Caleb Peng's side.
The Focus Blast, we know it's not quite enough, but there is the Focus Blast. It is going to launch into the Galarian Stunfisk, leaving it into the deep red. Ramberto has so much energy, and there is the Rock Slide. Caleb Peng choosing to let this Rock Slide through. Keeps the Registeel just a little healthy. Needs one more Mud Shot to knock out.
Securing switch advantage, but sacrificing shield advantage. Looking for an Earthquake, and he's unable to get it. Ramberto's Galarian Stunfisk could not hang on. In comes the Frostlass versus the Medicham. This is a very tough matchup by Dynamic Punch Medicham looking to strike. Frostlass reaches the Avalanche first.
Yeah, so Frostlass going for that Avalanche. A Shadow Ball would be disastrous. Ramberto gets a shield from Caleb. Caleb going for the Dynamic Punch. Ramberto knowing that this is Dynamic Punch. Let's see. It doesn't do as much damage. Medicham not being able to throw that neutral Psychic into the Frostlass.
Yeah, that single resisted damage there. We're going to see an Avalanche come through as well. But as you look at Caleb Peng's back line, he needs to remove this Frostlass from the field. His Noctowl is not going to get the same result as it did in game number 4. He's got to find a way to remove the Frostlass here. He's looking for an Ice Punch.
Yeah, and like we said, Frostlass is really susceptible to fast move damage.
Oh.
With only an Ice Punch, doesn't quite knock out the Frostlass. And we see Caleb, unfortunately, catching an Avalanche onto his Noctowl. You could see the disappointment on Caleb that shocked him there.
Maybe trying to catch a potential Shadow Ball, but the Icy Avalanche lands instead. In comes the Umbreon, and it looks really formidable here, especially behind that remaining Protect Shield. However, don't forget, Caleb Peng's Medicham still has a bit of energy, and it does have access to Dynamic Punch, but will Ramberto allow him to execute on that win condition?
Yeah, we can see Caleb thinking things through, leaning back. We have the foul play launching into the Noctowl. I don't think Noctowl's going to be able to get to that Sky Attack. It's close.
Oh,
it does.
my gosh.
That could be critical. The Noctowl is able to throw a last Sky Attack into Ramberto's Umbreon, knocking it under half health. And here is that Medicham. Medicham has a lot to do. It needs to be able to punch its way through the Umbreon here. Umbreon having some energy, throwing that foul play.
Ramberto's Umbreon just needs one more Snarl to seal this matchup up, and here it comes. Ramberto outlasting Caleb Peng in Game 5 of the Winners Finals.
Congratulations, Ramberto, standing up, wanting to immediately congratulate and hug his opponent. That is fantastic sportsmanship from these two really just these towering battlers. Ramberto showing his excitement there, is very excited to punch his ticket to Yokohama, Japan. But that is not the last we have seen from the mighty Caleb Peng. He will be moving down into the losers finals, best of 5 to face Conglaser.
We could be looking at a potential rematch of these two trainers you just saw on screen.
Yes, the winner of these losers finals will be winning their ticket to the Yokohama and then have the chance to fight for that prized monetary flight over.
Yes, the lovely coveted travel award,
Yes.
and of course bragging rights. I mean, who doesn't want to update their bio on social media, maybe even their resume saying they were the 2023 San Diego Pokemon Go regional champion? Ramberto certainly would enjoy that, as he is currently coming in to the grand finals on the winner's side of the bracket after beating Caleb Peng 3-2 and knocking him down to the loser's side of the bracket, where he's still in the running, but he does have to face off against Conglaser, who he beat in the Group D Winners Finals yesterday. So again, these trainers have played each other before. Conglaser certainly had a long road to make it here back to the Losers Finals for that rematch, and I cannot wait to see how it's going to play out.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and go to the stage where our two battlers are ready to face off. They've thought about their teams. They're looking at their Pokemon, making sure they're choosing the right ones. Let's take a quick short look at Caleb's team. You just saw it. We'll see it again. It's Registeel, Trevenant, Bastiodon, Noctowl, Sableye, and Medicham.
I gotta say, Caleb does look like he's a bit nervous compared to the winners finals. He does, I think have that pressure on him that if he loses this match, he is out of the running. That being said, Caleb, regardless of what happens, I think you are still one of the strongest commentators on the team, so thank you for making us look great. Conglaser, though, certainly, again, this is his opportunity for revenge because of his loss to Caleb yesterday. He's had a very long day today, and to steal a bit of Caleb's advice from earlier on in the day, you have to learn from your losses. And what a great opportunity to prove what you learned facing off against that person that beat you with your own team of the Trevenant, the Umbreon, Galarian, Stunfisk, Medicham, Noctowl, and Lantern. Match will start because we are starting it off right now. This is the best of 5 losers finals here in San Diego, California. Sableye versus the Medicham out on the field for these trainers.
This is exactly where Caleb wants to see that Medicham. The Sableye is such a great lead and able to switch into his own Medicham to counter this Umbreon. It's actually a last resort. Both moves do neutral damage, however, last resort will do just a slightly little bit more.
Yeah, last resort also a community day move, so something that you do have to keep an eye out for if you are looking to add Umbreon to your team. Foul Play is the move of choice this second time around, which does make sense. Does a little bit less damage for a little bit less energy, and energy is certainly the name of the game in these really tough final matchups.
We talk about Medicham versus Darks and Steel so often. Medicham often doesn't bring a fighting type charge move, and it typically doesn't do a lot of damage, but you just saw how much that dynamic punch did to that Umbreon, taking almost half of its health.
And now relying on the Ice Punch to deal some damage to Medicham, and I think this is where the Dynamic Punch does give you a bit of a disadvantage. Psychic would hit for more damage against the opposing Medicham, but with the Sableye still safe in Caleb's backline, he has options here, and I love how he's going for the lower energy cost of Ice Punch to just try and get as much damage down onto that Medicham as possible before his own Medicham has been knocked out.
And we're going to really see why Caleb prefers Sableye here and why I also prefer Sableye. This Medicham is loaded on energy on Conglaser's side, but it can't throw super effective Ice Punches. It only is neutral, and we see a switch out into the Noctowl countered by that Registeel. It does have a little bit of play with those Shadow Balls, but that Medicham in the back with a bunch of energy can only throw resisted charge moves into this Registeel on Caleb's side. It feels pretty safe.
It does feel pretty safe, and I feel like the reliance of the Registeel in particular early on in this Game 1 of Losers Finals is probably an indication of how this matchup went the other day. Just recognizing that Registeel, especially even with the threat of the Medicham on the opposing side of the field, just can't take that much damage from its charge moves, and it's the counter that you have to keep an eye out for. That being said, Registeel still a fantastic Pokemon despite the attempted nerfs of Zap Cannon, getting that attack drop against the Noctowl, honestly almost getting it to the point where it could just lock on down that Pokemon for the KO, caps out on energy before finally throwing the Focus Blast. A slight optimization here as it does take less energy.
I think we could have seen a lock on down, however, that would have meant that Registeel took another a Shadow Ball, not Shadow Claw, but instead we see the Shadow Claws farming down that Medicham. I think Conglaser had recognized that the Medicham didn't have quite enough in the tank to take on a Dark and Ghost type of Sableye. You'd think that Grass versus Rock should be very Grass favored, but the difference in bulk is major, and we have a major event happening here. It is game number 2, Noctowl into Trevenant. I called the Trevenant, but it was answered by the same exact Noctowl I was talking about as well.
And then it was answered by a Lantern, which was answered by a Trevenant. So truly a revolving door of Pokemon here. Both these trainers trying to gain the switch advantage to ensure that they had the favorable matchups on their side. But Trevenant ultimately will emerge superior with its resistance of both the Thunderbolt and the Surf and the Spark, able to hit back super effectively with the Seed Bomb.
Yeah, I would have preferred to see the switch into the Galarian Stunfisk by Conglaser. It's a bit safer, and it is the worse answer to that Noctowl, whereas Lantern is the better answer. We're going to see that switch is pretty handily kept by this Trevenant. It does not need to shield this Surf, and it's going to be able to come out with a little bit of energy, and it might be able to threaten a shield off of one of the Pokemon that Conglaser brings in afterwards. Instead, we're actually seeing another Surf, which is going to force a shield out of Caleb's Trevenant and potentially go for a farm down.
Oh, interestingly enough, it's not a farm down. Conglaser swaps in the Trevenant to take a Shadow Ball from Caleb. I think he was hoping that that would have been a Seed Bomb, possibly catching that thrown immediately after the Lantern finished the Surf. but instead Caleb able to connect the Shadow Ball, taking down one of Conglaser's Pokemon.
Yes, and in comes the Galarian Stunfisk. It is the last Pokemon on his side, as that Lantern only has a slither of health, and it's going to take only one fast move before it faints. The Shadow Ball comes through. This is the right move. It is not a bait. It'll do good neutral damage to that Galarian Stunfisk.
It will, but that Noctowl does have to worry about the fact that the Galarian Stunfisk will outpace to a Rock Slide, but Conglaser waiting to throw the Rock Slide until the Noctowl had that Shadow Ball ready. It was a charge move priority event, and now it's time to throw the Rock Slide. The
Rock Slide will come through, and I think the Noctowl will barely survive it. It is going to be able to pace to another Sky Attack if another charge move is not thrown, but here comes the Lantern, able to farm down. The question becomes, which Pokemon does Caleb bring in? I think it should be the Trevenant so that it can take care of this Lantern without being threatened by a charge move.
One single Shadow Claw is all that's needed to pick up the KO there, and now the Sableye swaps in to sort of take this damage from the Galarian Stunfisk. Conglaser going straight for that. Earthquake will do more damage than a Rock Slide, but should not threaten a knockout on Sableye at this point in time. I think Caleb just has to get to these foul plays quick enough to pick up that knockout on that Galarian Stunfisk. He gets to one. Will he get to the second?
I'm not sure a second will quite be necessary.
Oh,
it
that's
does
just a knockout.
knock out, and if it had knocked out, I think a couple more Shadow Claws would have been able to do it. That is a very well-played game by Caleb, getting a little bit lucky with the solid leads. Yes, definitely. It's a little bit of both. Skill definitely has a lot to play, especially if the two battlers have played each other before. There's definitely more mind-reading games, and we have a little bit of a mirror match on our hands. It is a hatted Noctowl into an unhatted Noctowl. Which Pokemon has the favor?
I mean, if we're talking a fashion battle, I think I know who I would pick, but in terms of the actual Pokemon battle at hand, it will be Conglaser's Noctowl to land that first Sky Attack, but we've seen this mirror quite a few times today. You know that the Noctowl would have to hit each other a few times to pick up the KO, but Conglaser swapping in the Galarian Stunfisk to take the Sky Attack from Caleb's Noctowl, but that allows him to send in his Medicham against the Stunfisk.
Yeah, the very interesting thing is that Conglaser actually had the least favorable matchup for Caleb's Noctowl in the front, with Lantern and Galarian Stunfisk in the back. You don't actually want to have a mirror match for your own Noctowl. It's being underutilized there, where you could have a more favorable matchup. So that is why we see him switch out into the Galarian Stunfisk, giving up switch advantage, allowing the Medicham to farm extra energy. We say that Ice Punch is not quite enough to knock out, but the ensuing counter is enough to take the KO.
I can't help but wonder if Caleb is just going to try and throw two Ice Punches immediately into the Noctowl coming in on that switch. Conglaser does not go for the shield against this first Ice Punch, which does make sense. You typically want to preserve your shields until you're confident that there is a knockout in contention. But another swap, this time catching the Ice Punch from the Medicham on the Lantern.
Yeah, Conglaser really trying to optimize his ability, his health, and really take away the optimization from Caleb in terms of how effective his charge moves are. We've seen two catches of going from neutral or super effective charge moves to resisted, and we're seeing a foul play come through on the Sableye. It's going to do a bit of a chunk to that Lantern. It's going to be a charge move tie. We're seeing the Surf come through. I think we're going to see mostly Surfs come through because Caleb still has two shields, now one.
He does, and it's also nicer to spend the least amount of energy when you know that you're going to need multiple charge moves to pick up that knockout. We'll let this second Surf connect, but it should only bring the Sableye down into the yellow, as it's not a super effective hit, whereas Sableye is able to start bringing these Shadow Claws to the point where it could almost knock out the Lantern on that alone. Will throw a foul play here to try and pick up that KO, but instead picks up a shield onto the Lantern, saving that energy for later, and banking it for later using Noctowl to catch the foul play.
Really great predictive play by Conglaser there, catching the foul play onto Noctowl. Now it's back to the Noctowl mirror that we saw at the beginning of the game, except Caleb has a shield still. Saving it for later, knowing that Lantern has a charge move, the Sky Attack does not threaten his own Noctowl and barely outpaces Conglaser to the next charge move. Sky Attack coming through, Caleb nodding his head, knowing that he has enough in the tank to take out this Lantern just with fast attacks, and Caleb wins 3-0 to push his way through the losers finals to our grand finals.
And also qualified to compete in the World Championships in Yokohama, Japan. What an insane run back from Caleb there. I was just about to say, there are still 5 Pokemon remaining in this matchup, but every single one of them was in the red. And even though that Lantern had both a Surf and a Thunderbolt available to it as charge moves, Conglaser could not throw those attacks because he needed to, because Caleb still had that 1 shield remaining, in addition to having 3 Pokemon in the red. Just very well managed. Even if that Noctowl had fallen to the Lantern, either the Sableye or the Medicham should have been able to pick up the KO at that point.
So we do have to say congratulations to Caleb Penn and Ramberto. They're both some pretty cool cats and pushed their way into Worlds in Yokohama.
All right, welcome in everyone. I am here in the Analyst Lounge with Defy over there. We do have Caleb Peng and Ramberto joining us. These are our 2 finalists here in San Diego this afternoon. I think we have a few questions for each of these trainers here. Stephanie, would you like to kick us off?
I would love to. So Caleb, again, you just had a 3-0. You're warm coming in. Certainly not a battle that you won by the hair on your chin. You dominated that performance. How does it feel going into this final battle with Ramberto?
I mean, honestly, this is the dream scenario. You know, this is my guy. We drove down together. We're team building together. We scrimmed ahead of time. I didn't even prep for his team for today because I was like, I don't even care if I lose him. And, you know, we both qualify for Worlds right now. That's an amazing feat in itself. So this is a dream scenario for us, and, you know, it's going to be a good set of battles, hopefully.
We're going to start with a look at Ramberto's team. He is coming in from the winner's side of the bracket. He is only 1 best-of-5 set away from winning that travel award to Yokohama, Japan, and he is running a team of Noctowl, Frostlass, Umbreon, Galarian Stunfisk, Trevenant, and Medicham.
Yes, and you notice the W next to his name. That means he was coming from the winner's side of the bracket, so he only needs to win 1 best-of-5 in order to take the title of Grand Champion. On the other side of the table, we have our co-caster and competitor, Caleb Peng. You see the L next to his name. That means he's coming from the loser's side of the bracket. He needs to win a best-of-5 to flip the bracket, reset it, and then win a second one in order to claim that title. His team is that Registeel, Trevenant, of course, his signature Pokemon, Bastiodon. You see it on his team, you see it on the table. Noctowl, Sableye, and Medicham.
I mean, you almost don't see it on the table, just given how that banner is lining up with that poor little friend over there, but I'm sure he'll get that perfect shot right there. There we go. Just was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And Ramberto was really only able to win on a slim margin in that Game 5. I think we're going to be resuming this as what is effectively of Game 6. Both these trainers remember how that winner's final set went, and now they're ready to run it back in the grand finals with a lead of Stunfisk versus Caleb's Registeel.
We're going to see an immediate swap out into that Sableye to try to save that Registeel for a more positive matchup. In comes the Noctowl. The Umbreon is sitting in the back for that Trevenant. Caleb really needs to flip switch here, but it just doesn't quite seem possible. This matchup against Noctowl is just not favorable whatsoever.
The return at least does a bit more damage than a foul play would do, but Caleb will let this Sky Attack connect to the Sableye and possibly will just let it get knocked out to save those shields forever, or for later, not forever. Should probably get to a foul play if he did shield there, but again, just letting this go, letting the Sableye get knocked out, and possibly looking to bring in that Registeel, knowing that there's only so much damage the Noctowl can do to it, whereas a single Zap Cannon should be enough to guarantee the KO at this point.
The one issue that Caleb has coming back into this matchup is that neither Registeel nor his Trevenant have the ability to fast move pressure down this Noctowl. He is required to throw a charge move in order to take it off of the field, and you do see that this Focus Blast is coming. It's going to leave that Registeel a little bit lower on energy, but it's more energy than it had initially in the matchup versus the Galarian Stunfisk.
And I think Caleb actually maxed out Registeel's energy before throwing that Focus Blast, so really just trying to make the best out of a less than optimal situation. The Focus Blast now from this Registeel will draw out a shield on that Galarian Stunfisk, so Caleb does have the shield advantage, but needs to start using those shields as Earthquake should do enough damage to knock out from this range.
Ooh, a no shield means that Earthquake's going to land, and as soon as Caleb switches in the Trevenant, a Rock Slide's going to come first, but eventually Ramberto is going to switch in that Umbreon, and we'll see likely a defeated look on Caleb's face, recognizing that that is just an awful matchup to be in. You see him laugh and smile. He knows that it's been written on the wall. Umbreon is just too bulky for this matchup to be continued.
Ramberto very wisely saving the Umbreon until the last moment when he knew he had the advantage. Admittedly, the Trevenant will get the opportunity to throw a Shadow Ball here, which is the more powerful charge move in this situation, but it just doesn't do enough damage, and a couple more Snarls plus a Last Resort, I guess, for that last little bit of damage should be enough to knock out this Trevenant and put Ramberto up 1-0.
Yeah, you can see both of these trainers on the field laughing, chuckling a little bit about that charge move throw. Of course, normal is double resisted by that ghost typing, but these two trainers know each other well, and they know that they're just having some fun.
I like that too. I mean, it looks like they're even sort of talking through their end game there and possibly sharing what they were thinking, which, I mean, is great when you're in a practice situation, but you do have to wonder how much information can you give your opponent, regardless if they're your friend or not, when there is so much on the line. And I think Caleb already knows his game plan as he locked into his 3 Pokemon very, very quickly in between games. And again, I think this is just coming back to the fact that these two trainers have played each other so many times. Maybe Caleb just knows what his optimal line is at this point into Ramberto's team.
And speaking about battling each other, we have another Registeel versus Galarian Stunfisk, and it looks like an immediate swap out into the Sableye, pulling out the Umbreon here. This is looking not so great for Caleb. It's going to be a Noctowl versus Medicham at the end.
It's really difficult, and I can't help but wonder if Caleb is just hoping to catch Ramberto off guard with a similar lead from what we saw in Game 1. Sableye will get to the return, and that will deal damage to the Umbreon, but it's like the bulkiest Pokemon right now in the metagame for Pokemon Go, and as a result, it's not even knocked down to half of its health from that very powerful charge move. Sableye, on the other hand, will be taking consistent damage from these foul plays on this Umbreon and will be down into the red. Should get the opportunity to throw one more charge move. If Caleb wants to go for it, it's gonna be that return.
Yes, this return is going to be very close to knocking out. We actually see shield advantage is going to the Sableye. It's not a positive matchup, but the shield advantage is able to be taken. This is now good, really great. It was between good and great there, because now the Medicham has the opportunity to get a singular more Ice Punch into that Noctowl. We see the foul play going in here. I think Caleb has recognized where the shields are best utilized, and that's to preserve the health of that Registeel going into that Galarian Stunfisk later on in this matchup.
The Medicham also has the benefit of having the Dynamic Punch over Psychic, which means that Medicham versus the Galarian Stunfisk could also be a winning condition for Caleb if he has the shields to support it. But with 3 foul plays already on this Umbreon connecting with the Medicham, that brings it down into the red, and even with 2 shields, how much can that help? does counter down the Umbreon. Noctowl out onto the field. Caleb throws his first Ice Punch. Ramberto lets it connect, but I feel like you have to be very careful here as this Medicham is so close to getting KO'd, and you can't swap in that Registeel.
I like this play, saving the Ice Punch for later. It's going to be tough because that Ice Punch really needs to go against this Galarian Stunfisk so that one of the charge moves from the Registeel can go on to that Noctowl. It'll also be close. I think one crucial key factor here is Caleb ever going to be able to lock on down this Galarian Stunfisk and come out with energy from this matchup?
That's going to be really tough, and using a shield to block a Rock Slide is not a great way to start that off. You really want to save the shields for Earthquake. Caleb does guess correctly this time, shielding the Earthquake from this Galarian Stunfisk. This also uses up Galarian Stunfisk's energy, so the Registeel should be able to throw the Focus Blast before Caleb has to worry about a second charge move, but like you said, not sure if he'll be able to lock on down this Pokemon.
I think he's going for the combo play. He does have the switch up. It's going to come right at the Earthquake. He actually catches the Earthquake. That is massive, allowing his Registeel to come back in. Even an undercharge of this Earthquake will be enough to knock out the Medicham. Now it becomes a matchup between the Registeel and the Noctowl. Registeel has the option to build up extra energy and be able to come out of this matchup with energy to be able to outpace that Galarian Stunfisk later on, but the question becomes, can the wing attacks get it down into Rock Slide range?
The Zap Cannon is ready to go, and I believe this Registeel has capped out on energy as well. So that is a knockout, and the Registeel is rushing towards that Focus Blast. It's getting there closer and closer, and is just able to knock out with Lockdown.
The lock on down does happen. 1 damage resisted against a Steel type is still 1 damage.
He's not bringing it, despite the fact that once again we see this 2 Steel-type Pokemon leading off against each other. You have to look at the backline though, and you have to wonder, okay, what's going to be different this time around? Galarian Stunfisk building to that Earthquake will not throw it before the Focus Blast from this Registeel draws out the first shield from Roberto, and we do see the Medicham in the back of Caleb's party. Now would be an interesting time to swap it in, but instead, here comes Rock Slide. Will Caleb shield it? He lets it go, the correct call.
This is the danger of playing Galarian Stunfisk into Registeel. Registeel very infrequently baits, and it's all really on that Galarian Stunfisk to either throw the heavy-hitting Earthquake or the bait of Rock Slide. Earthquake will do a lot of damage. It is correctly shielded. It seems like Caleb is going to go for a second Focus Blast here. It will not quite deal enough damage to the Galarian Stunfisk to knock out, but it's going to be incredibly close.
You have to wonder as well if we'll see another lock on down for this Galarian Stunfisk. We get a swap first here, trying to catch an Earthquake. Instead, it looks like a slight hesitation from Ramberto means a Rock Slide will be connecting with this Noctowl, and that Galarian Stunfisk has a second Rock Slide banked for later. Umbreon now out on the field to face off against the Noctowl.
I think Caleb needs to recognize that the Medicham is not going to face any Pokemon it wants to face. We've seen the Galarian Stunfisk. We now see the Umbreon. There are no other Pokemon in the back for Ramberto possible that Medicham would want to see. So he needs to prioritize saving either a charge move or health on this Noctowl, knowing that that would be crucial after the end of this matchup, but it looks like Caleb is going to be letting it go. Can Caleb build up enough energy on his Medicham in order to really threaten the impending Trevenant coming in from Ramberto?
We shall see. The Sky Attack certainly does leave that opportunity open if the Medicham is the Pokemon to switch in coming in next, because that Umbreon is at such low health. Countering it down seems like the best option for Caleb, but will have to take some damage in return, and we'll also have to worry about this damage adding up over time, again, especially against this Trevenant. Does get the Ice Punch ready to go right as the Trevenant takes to the field, which is a great start for sure, but certainly still an uphill battle.
A bit of an interesting switch here, given that now the Medicham can switch out after it throws the second Ice Punch into that Registeel and potentially threaten a knockout blow with a Zapcon cannon. We see the Seed Bomb being shielded. A second Ice Punch is going to be reached before the Seed Bomb, and now the Trevenant needs to reach for a Shadow Ball to really threaten a likely switch in of a Registeel. But does the Registeel have energy?
It doesn't have much energy remaining after that Focus Blast, but catches an attack, but it's not a Shadow Ball. It is going to be the Seed Bomb, and Registeel should have enough time to get to that Zap Cannon before a second Seed Bomb is reached, and despite the fact that this attack is resisted, it should knock out the Trevenant.
Yes, it's going to be a key decision for Ramberto. Does he come in with Galarian Stunfisk or the Umbreon? Galarian Stunfisk would need to reach an Earthquake. The Umbreon's Foul Play might not be enough to knock out. It's a tough decision. Lockdowns are going to be close.
It's so close. He reaches for the Earthquake, but he gets KO'd before it's able to be thrown. Now this Registeel has plenty of time to get to the Focus Blast to knock out this Umbreon and put Caleb up 2-1 in this best-of-5 grand finals.
Caleb is one win away from resetting the bracket and forcing a second best-of-5 between these two trainers. It would limit the number of battles that we would see from 15 to 14, but I honestly don't care. I'm so excited to watch these two battlers battle it out on stage. Such intense fights, so many moments of prediction from both of these battlers, trying to think ahead about what Pokemon they have in the back. I'm sure Caleb recognized that his Medicham didn't have as much play as he would have liked.
Don't want to get caught in that situation, but these trainers, they mix it up, but they really just stay the same with a double Noctowl lead. Two Medicham in the back, with the Sableye and the Galarian Stunfisk being the difference from these trainers.
And you look at the two backlines, and you have to give an advantage to Caleb here. There is a Medicham and Sableye on his side, and we actually see a switch out into the Galarian Stunfisk. This is going to line up the Sableye against Ramberto's Medicham. It's exactly how Caleb wants to play this game out. He had the Pokemon in the lead. He wanted the Noctowl mirror match. Both Medicham and Sableye don't do that favorably there. We're going to see an immense farm down, I would imagine, from this Medicham. It's going to come out with a lot of energy, and I expect it to go into that Noctowl, which really doesn't like taking Ice Punches.
It doesn't, and I'm curious just how many Ice Punches this Medicham can get to. We'll throw one at this point in time just to lock in that KO against the Galarian Stunfisk before it could throw another Earthquake or possibly a Rock Slide. But again, if Ramberto does send in this Noctowl at this point in time, there is already a Ice Punch waiting. Instead, it is going to be the Medicham. So Caleb's Medicham gets to a second Ice Punch. We'll throw it. No shield from Ramberto. Still has one Ice Punch remaining, and I believe his switch timer is almost up as well, which means the Sableye should be able to come in onto the field after another Ice Punch.
Yes, but the one thing, it's a bit of a 50-50. Ramberto is preventing super effective damage on the Noctowl, but he is forced to throw energy here. He cannot counter down this fighting and psychic type Pokemon of Medicham with his own Medicham. He needs to throw energy. We see that here with the Ice Punch. The Sableye is coming in. It's going to be able to very comfortably take this Ice Punch from the Medicham. It's not a Trevenant. It doesn't have that grass subtyping. It's only neutral damage. We see an immediate swap out by both of these trainers, really forward thinking from Caleb there. We see the Sky Attack coming through. Two shields on Ramberto's side, and we see the first Sky Attack not being shielded.
These Noctowl do have a little bit of bulk to play around with, and with all the shields remaining as well, you have to wonder when trainers will start to spend them. Noctowl on Caleb's side of the field should be able to survive another Sky Attack, but it would be very, very low in health, and as a result, you see that first shield spent, and here we are, both Sky Attacks thrown on what appears to be a charge move priority event. Caleb unfortunately losing that event and has to spend his final shield as a result.
The one thing going in Ramberto's favor here is that the Sableye does not have any fast move pressure against his Noctowl. Shadow Claw being double resisted by that normal typing, whereas his own Medicham does have neutral counters. We see that that is another charge move type. That Noctowl has a small amount of health left, but that is a mountain for that Sableye to overcome with these Shadow Claws. It will need a charge move, and Ramberto still does have a shield.
He still has a shield. He has another Sky attack as well. Caleb possibly trying to build to 2 foul plays before throwing that attack. Maybe even hoping that he can Shadow Claw down this Noctowl, but a swap into the Medicham is all that's needed to secure the knockout, and again, tie up this set 2-2. If Ramberto wins the 5th game of this match, he will be moving on as your champion of this regional championship. But if Caleb wins, we are going to reset this bracket and get another best of 5 started. So
another thing to think about is obviously Caleb's Noctowl is relatively recent. It is the hatted variant. Maybe Caleb was practicing with a different Noctowl that had a slightly different stat spread.
Unfortunately, the fashion bonus not coming into play in that charge move priority event, but we will get a fashionable start to Game 5 of this Grand Finals with some revolving Pokemon into the Medicham versus the Umbreon. We know that Medicham has the advantage here thanks to counter, thanks to Dynamic Punch. I think the big question here is, when do these trainers start spending those shields?
Given that Dynamic Punch is prominent here on this Medicham, I would be very surprised to see shields being used. Maybe the Medicham shield if it doesn't have Dynamic Punch, but it's not really threatened by the number of charge moves this Umbreon can give out, given the amount of damage that last Dynamic Punch did. We're going to see a counter down at this point before the next foul play is reached, and now the 2 Pokemon in the back for Ramberto, Galarian Stunfisk doesn't want to see Dynamic Punch, and Noctowl doesn't want to see the likely 2 Ice Punches that are going to come in. I think this is a very positive position for Caleb.
The first Ice Punch will connect with that Noctowl as Ramberto forgoes the shield, which makes sense. You don't want to preemptively spend those shields, especially in such a high-stress situation here. Medicham gets to the second Ice Punch and will throw it to connect with the Noctowl. This should bring it down into the yellow and open the door for a KO from the Registeel on his side of the field. We see a swap into the Galarian Stunfisk, and the Trevenant finds that alignment against it, which is perfect because the Noctowl can't touch it for the next 60 seconds.
It's a bit interesting to see Caleb go for the Ice Punch there. I could be wrong, but I believe Dynamic Punch does slightly more overall damage to a Noctowl than Ice Punch, but maybe it's slightly different, or maybe just Caleb wanted to make sure that he got that charge move off.
It's always about the energy, I think, at this point in time, especially when the overall damage isn't necessarily as important as the fact that you are dealing damage. Rock Slide will not connect with this Trevenant on Caleb's side of the field, gets to the Shadow Ball, and Ramberto saves the shield for later. So this is going to do a bit more damage than the Seed Bomb. Leave the Galarian Stunfisk in the red, should reach a Rock Slide prior to getting knocked out, but Caleb still has 1 shield and a Registeel available to him. Could we see another lock-on down on this Galarian Stunfisk?
I think we might later on, or maybe at this point, given that we see the Registeel on the field, Ramberto has recognized that this is not a positive matchup for him. The Shadow Ball, although it is neutral, it will only do about 1/4 to 1/3 of that Registeel's total health. We're seeing another Shadow Ball come out. I would expect to see a no shield, given that Earthquake does a lot more damage than the Shadow Ball.
I absolutely agree. Registeel has enough health to stay in the game, and that's exactly where you want it to stay. Focus Blast will be blocked by Ramberto's final shield in this matchup, and it looks like this Noctowl should get to another Shadow Ball in time, instead throwing the Sky attack. If Caleb was paying attention, he'd know that this was not as powerful as the Shadow Ball, but still will shield the attack and go for a lock on down, swapping in the Galarian Stunfisk, but Medicham is there to knock it out with a counter. Medicham reaches for the Ice Punch, but they knock each other out. Registeel holding on in the back. We get a bracket reset.
We're going to be seeing at least 10 games, at least 13 games between these two battlers. Maybe we'll see the fated number of 15 battles. Honestly, those of us here at the casting desk, those of us in the crowd, and those of you at home are all blessed with the number of great battles we've seen between these two trainers.
I absolutely agree. And you can tell they're still having fun despite the fact that the stakes seem to just be getting higher and higher. And as we go into this bracket reset, we are going to reset the score. We are now back to 0 versus 0 from both these trainers. The difference being this is the final set of Pokemon that we will be playing as a part of the regional championships here this weekend.
How many Registeel versus Galarian Stunfisk matchups in the lead do you think we will see in this best of 5? We saw 3 in the last best of 5, and I believe in their first best of 5 we saw at least 2.
I was going to say 2 to be safe.
All right.
And I'm going to stick with my gut.
I'll bet 3, and we don't need to make any sort of actual bet out of this. This will be what we're guessing, and we see the lead. It is Frostlass into Sableye.
All right, none of these Pokemon are Registeel or Galarian Stunfisk, but they are in the back of both these trainers' parties. In addition, we see a Noctowl and a Medicham, so we're going to have these Ghost-type Pokemon battle each other to start off this final set of the Grand Finals reset. Avalanche blocked by the Sableye. Foul play now targeting the Frostlass. Will Ramberto shield it? No, he just lets it go.
Taking shield advantage here, allowing the Frostlass to go. I think it's a smart move, but Caleb needs to recognize that there's likely another Pokemon weak in the backward. It's actually really tough to see that because the foul play was let through. There's definitely a lot of mind games coming from Ramberto there about is he strong to the Sableye in the back or is he weak to the Sableye in the back?
A swap into the Registeel will give us a slight look at this popular lead we've seen from both these trainers in this matchup. We already know that a single Earthquake is not enough to knock out this Registeel, but I don't think the Registeel will have enough time on the field to get to the Focus Blast before a second, but instead, it's actually going to be the Medicham swapping out onto the field. Caleb not throwing that Focus Blast on alignment, able to pivot to the Zap Cannon and get an attack drop on the Medicham.
Really interesting back and forth between these two trainers. Ramberto had the option to go straight for 2 Earthquakes and completely nullify the Registeel before it got a charge move off. Interesting seeing Caleb come in with the Noctowl here, given that it takes super effective damage from the Ice Punch as opposed to that Sableye. But remember, it is a Galarian Stunfisk in the back, and the Sableye has a slightly better matchup against that than the Noctowl.
Another Ice Punch from this Medicham will connect with Sableye's, or excuse me, Caleb's Noctowl. And it's already at a Shadow Ball and a half. And once again, Ramberto lets this connect. This will only do enough damage for that knockout, but the Stunfisk is back out onto the field with a Rock Slide already prepared to go.
I would expect to see a no shield here. Rock Slide will be doing super effective damage. You'd rather save it for the Sableye where the Earthquake might come into play. We see the first foul play come out. This will force a shield from Ramberto. The question becomes, can Ramberto get to 2 Rock Slides in time? It's going to be very close here.
It's going to be very close, but Ramberto will throw this first Rock Slide as it's already available. It looks like he is only a couple of mud shots away from getting to that attack. Sableye, though, is only 1 Shadow Claw away from the foul play. Caleb will reach it in time. This attack will connect with the Galarian Stunfisk for the knockout, and he is up 1-0 in this Grand Finals reset.
Very great read by Caleb there. Had the solid lead Sableye into Frostlass is a very tricky matchup. Like so many other things, we've talked about Frostlass versus Venusaur. Frostlass versus Sableye is actually very similar. It's 6 Shadow Claws to the first foul play, 6 Shadow Claws to the second, and 5 to the third. And Frostlass, again, is the same 6 to Avalanche, 6 Powder Snows to Avalanche, then 5. So they pace the same rate, but Shadow Claw is super effective, Powder Snow is neutral, and Sableye has a little bit more bulk than that Frostlass, so it's really able to pressure Sableye a lot more, or excuse me, pressure Frostlass a lot more, because Sableye just deals so much more damage with those Shadow Claws.
I can't help but wonder as well if fatigue is starting to set in for these trainers. I mean, this is a lot of time to be playing what is essentially the same matchup over and over and over again. And with so much on the line, I feel like the stress is just being amplified every single game of this set. We are getting started with Game 2 of this Grand Finals reset. It's the Sableye from Caleb. It's the Galarian Stunfisk from Ramberto. And it looks like both these trainers are happy to stay in for a little bit, get some energy, but swapping in that Umbreon against the Sableye gives Caleb the opportunity to send out the Registeel.
I really like that play from Caleb. Farming up extra energy on the Sableye will be very nice for that Galarian Stunfisk in the future. It basically mitigates any farm down potential that Galarian Stunfisk has on this Registeel after the Registeel versus Umbreon matchup plays out. These two Pokemon are both titans of their type in terms of bulk, but the Registeel has access to Focus Blast. We see the Zap Cannon coming here, and the shield honestly doesn't matter all that much because 2 charge moves are necessary. The Zap Cannon will do a lot less damage than the Focus Blast because it is only neutral, but you always need 2.
I was going to say, if you're anticipating a shield, sometimes I feel like the Zap Cannon is the better choice of charge move on Registeel, just because you do have the option of the attack drop. It's not guaranteed anymore, but again, if you know the attack's going to be blocked, at least you have a chance of that energy paying off in different ways. The Focus Blast, the second charge move, is allowed to connect to that Umbreon, bringing it down into the red to match the Registeel. Caleb still has both of his shields, has the shield advantage, does not give that up. Registeel will hold on for one more lock-on, but that's not going to be enough to knock out that Umbreon for sure. Noctowl, though, I think happy to come in and gain some energy for this next matchup, as Foul Play is not going to threaten a knockout just yet.
Now that Umbreon is out of the way of Caleb's Sableye, he feels comfortable using switch advantage. There is a Noctowl in the back, but Noctowl will take a good amount of damage from both Foul Play as well as Return later on. We see his own Noctowl coming in with that bow tie and hat, farming down the Umbreon, coming out with a lot of energy. Immediate Rock Slide from Ramberto. I like, honestly, the play from both. Great awareness by Caleb to make the catch. This is not the heavy-hitting Earthquake. He can afford to no shield here.
But another swap from Ramberto into that Noctowl to face off against the Sableye. I can't help but wonder if this is the better alignment for Caleb, just given how the charge move priority events played out earlier on in the previous set. Sableye able to get to the return before Noctowl able to throw another Sky Attack, and this return is allowed through. If Ramberto realized that it was going to be the return over the Foul Play, he might have wanted to shield that, but instead Noctowl will still have enough health to almost get to 2 Sky Attacks. Caleb still has 2 shields remaining, and it looks like he's going to be using them both with his own Noctowl.
I would have been a bit surprised to see him shield there, given that those Shadow Claws just don't add up fast. We're gonna have to see if he shields this or not. We do see the shield come up. Can Ramberto get to another Sky Attack? No, he's energy dry. In comes the Galarian Stunfisk, which is also energy dry. The Mud Shot comes through, the Shadow Ball comes through. We see the last shield, I believe, being used by Ramberto here for the Shadow Ball. The question is, how many Shadow Balls can Caleb get to before 2 Rock Slides?
The first Rock Slide is thrown exactly on alignment, which means the energy count of this Galarian Stunfisk is back at 0. Caleb is at 1.5 Shadow Balls. will take the opportunity to throw the first one here. Let's just do a quick check to see if it does more than half of what's remaining, and I don't think it does. Caleb would possibly need to find a third Shadow Ball to guarantee the knockout, but the Rock Slide is already there. Ramberto tying up this Grand Finals reset. We are now tied 1 game to 1 game.
At this point, we're guaranteed 14 battles. I keep doing math. The numbers keep going up and up. I can't wait to see how this one continues to shape up. We're getting ready into our next battle. So far, we are 0 for 3 on the Galarian Stunfisk into Registeel. This time, it's Trevenant into Registeel.
I mean, technically, Ramberto could swap in that Galarian Stunfisk at this point in time, but that would not be a lead. Instead, looks like Trevenant's going to stick out this matchup for a bit, throws a Shadow Ball against the Registeel just as Caleb was reaching for that Zap Cannon, looking to deal some nice damage to the Trevenant, and I believe that was also a charge move priority event.
Yes, and we're seeing the Zap Cannon come through. It's a little bit interesting if it gets an attack drop. It does get the attack drop. Now the Sableye is going to be able to farm all the way down. We see the swap into Caleb's Sableye. It's going to go for the return, but now the Noctowl is no longer going to face that Medicham in the back, and the Medicham is going to face Ramberto's Galarian Stunfisk.
Something for Caleb to note or possibly make a guess about, as the presence of the Medicham and the Stunfisk has not been revealed yet on stream. Instead, Noctowl first, using the Sky Attack to drop this Sableye down into the red. Caleb should get the opportunity to get to another return, but it's going to be close, as it looks like Ramberto is just happy to farm down the Sableye and save all of that energy for either the return of the Registeel or the reveal of the Medicham.
The return of the Registeel sounds like a movie that I'd want to watch, and in it will likely come. The question becomes, can it comfortably no-shield a Shadow Ball? And it looks like Caleb decides that that's what he needs to do. Maybe getting a farm down from his Medicham onto this Noctowl. It's really close. We actually see a Sky Attack being thrown by Ramberto. That's the optimal position for Caleb to be in here now that the Noctowl no longer has energy. The issue, though, is that the Trevenant is still very healthy, and it does have a good amount of energy now. We see a Seed Bomb going through. That is the correct play from Ramberto. 2 shield on Caleb's side means he just needs to throw as many charge moves as he can.
The first charge move, an Ice Punch comes out from this Medicham finally, but Ramberto using a shield to block it, possibly wanting to try and get to the next charge move on this Trevenant. A second Seed Bomb. Will Caleb shield this? He does. This Medicham has such a tall ask moving forwards in this matchup, as there is still a full health Galarian Stunfisk on Ramberto's side of the field. Also gets to another Seed Bomb before Caleb can throw that Ice Punch.
We can see the importance of going for Seed Bombs here. That's added up so much damage. The Medicham is on its last legs. An Ice Punch is being thrown. I think Caleb might have been predicting the Noctowl to come in. He should have been throwing Dynamic Punch here. It is the super effective move, and with the amount of health that the Noctowl now has, we see 2 wing attacks come through. It's able to take on that Medicham. Ramberto is now up 2 games to 1 in the bracket resetted Grand Finals. 1 more game to get that paid ticket to Yokohama, though. It has to be said again that both of these trainers already have qualified, so they are only fighting for that prize.
They have both qualified, but there is a significant difference between qualifying as the regional champion and qualifying as the regional finalist, as the medals quite aptly summarizes, with Pikachu there smiling and being like, you're a finalist, you know, good stuff, good stuff. But I can't help but wonder, we saw Caleb try to rotate back to that Registeel lead, and it feels like Ramberto called that this time around with the Trevenant leading instead. Given that Ramberto is up a game, I can't help but wonder, we haven't seen Caleb make any hard reads based off the previous lead from Ramberto. Maybe you go Trevenant a second time. You hope that Caleb is just sticking with what's worked in previous games and anticipating not a second Trevenant lead that will just give you that alignment that you need to carry through. I mean, there really wasn't much Caleb could have done in that matchup. Once everything sort of played out, the matches just weren't lined up properly.
Ramberto's Noctowl, and it was tough. At the end of the battle, the Noctowl had just so much energy, was able to throw charge moves into so many Pokemon and take them out. And here we go into game number 4. It is the Stunfisk, Galarian Stunfisk into the Sableye. That is 0 for 4, no double steal leads.
The Sableye is more than happy to stay in on the field, though, and it's Umbreon who swaps in, possibly trying to take a foul play, but instead, Caleb waiting, saving that energy for later, and sending in the Registeel. The Registeel will more than happily take a couple of these foul plays from the Umbreon as it builds up to either a Focus Blast or a Zap Cannon, and once again, we're seeing Caleb reach for that Zap Cannon first, knowing that it probably would be shielded, and there is that additional chance of the attack drop regardless of the shield.
Ramberto's playing a very interesting line here. He's playing Galarian Stunfisk and 2 Pokemon who are very strong against Sableye. Typically when you run ABB lines, the first Pokemon is weak to that Pokemon that you're covering for in the back, but instead he's actually got 3 strong Pokemon against Sableye. Of course, Galarian Stunfisk being more neutral than the other 2, but there's no solid weakness. There's no really pressing reason for him to switch out here, but it looks like he's fighting as hard as he can for switch advantage. Another Zap Cannon comes through. Caleb getting a little unlucky here. That is 0 for 3 on Zap Cannon debuffs, and it's a 2/3 chance. That's just really incredible bad luck there.
But the Registeel is still on the field and is close to getting to another Zap Cannon, but this time she's playing it safe and throwing the Focus Blast as there are no more shields remaining for Ramberto. And at this point in time, you can just go straight for that big damage. Umbreon does reach a foul play and a last resort, but it looks like Ramberto is charging up some additional energy, getting to almost 2 foul plays to ensure that this Umbreon has an attack waiting for the Noctowl that Caleb sends in.
Yeah, Caleb had 2 options there. He could have come in with the Sableye and shielded this foul play, but I like coming in with the Noctowl. Umbreon is going to do a little bit of chip damage to it, but it doesn't require the shield, so the shield can be saved for a more potent charge move later. We see just how much energy Caleb's Sableye has. No shielding the Earthquake. This is going to do a lot of damage, but honestly, the Noctowl on Ramberto's side also has a lot of threat with a Shadow Ball of its own.
Return from the Sableye will connect with the Noctowl on Ramberto's side of the field, bringing it down to just below half of its health. Sableye will need to get to another return or a foul play to deal some damage to try and even up the score to keep Caleb's dreams of a regional champion title alive. The foul play barely misses the knockout on this Noctowl, and the Noctowl waits a couple of seconds before using that wing attack to knock out the Sableye, has the Sky attack ready and waiting for this Noctowl. We know that Ramberto's Noctowl is most likely stronger than Caleb's. There's also still that Galarian Stunfisk remaining in the back. I don't know if Caleb has enough Shadow Balls to power through the Galarian Stunfisk.
It's really key. You saw Ramberto wait on that Sableye. Those Shadow Claws were doing 1 damage each time to that Noctowl, and that's like maybe 1 or 2 fewer wing attacks that Caleb's Noctowl could get. We see another Shadow Ball coming out, and Caleb has got his last shield. The question is, will 2 Rock Slides be coming in before the wing attack of the wing attack down of this Galarian Stunfisk?
That first Rock Slide blocked by a shield. The second Rock Slide, Ramberto just barely reaching it in time. It's going to do enough damage to knock out this Noctowl, and just like that, Ramberto 777 is your 2023 San Diego Regional Champion.
And you see these 2 battlers who have talked so much about their friendship hug it out on stage. They know they both battled their hardest. They both put forth their top 6 Pokemon and fought it out valiantly on the stage. What a show they put on for us all.
let's take a look at the bracket from this weekend, which has settled with Ramberto, the winner of the grand finals after a very exciting reset, beating Caleb 2 times overall to win the tournament here. On the losers side of the bracket, though, we had an incredible run from Conglaser, who made it all the way from losers round 1 into the losers finals, only losing to Caleb after losing in the winners finals. So a very, very exciting match, and congratulations again to Ramberto, Caleb, and Conglaser. You know, what incredible teams. Some incredible Pokemon played from all of these amazing trainers. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you all in Orlando.